Production funding for Arts Upload has been provided in part by Muriel McBrien Kaufman Foundation, Hall Family Foundation, Francis Family Foundation, John W. and FEE Spies Memorial Trust, the H&R Block Foundation, Richard J. Stern Foundation for the Arts, Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Randy Mason.
And I'm Maris Aylward.
Our show's called Arts Upload, and this week we've come to Bonner Springs.
Making the rounds at the Moon Marble Company.
With stories about an artist whose forte is color and a playwright who lives in a mustard yellow house.
Also some star power in support of jail door guitars.
It's all ahead on The Upload. There are artists who burst onto the scene before they're barely old enough to vote.
And there are others who come to it late in life.
Then there's Nina Irwin, who for most of her adult life has been able to make a living doing graphic design work and other assignments in the world of art.
4 years ago, after a trip to England to work on her master's degree in art history, Nina decided it was time to go for it as a painter.
And it hasn't taken long for her layered, dreamlike paintings and ceramics to be warmly embraced by both critics and buyers.
It was a snowy, cold Thursday night. We were expecting maybe 60 people, and we ended up with well over 120, maybe 140. It was tremendous. It was a beautiful show. It was an easy show for us. It had a tremendous flow. This sounds so corny, but the room was filled with love and admiration for Nina.
Oh my gosh, it was a fun show. And part of that was because of so many people. And then a lot of people knew each other, and it was like, party. To have a successful opening, it was kind of validating. It's like, well, I've always had some wonderful people supporting me, but not a lot. I turned 50 this last year, and I don't feel like, oh, I'm getting old and what am I doing with my life? I couldn't feel more different.
The Nina Irwin, striding toward her studio on the 5th floor of the Livestock Exchange building, has seen some impressive successes in the last few years. Since at 46, she decided to go all in on her dream of making the kind of art that galleries like the Weinberger might choose to display. Surrounded by a sea of materials and her beloved art history books, she's almost got that master's degree. Nina comes here to work daily with a method that's largely her own.
I use inks and watercolors and oil paint. This is the way I do it. I hardly work with opaque colors. I'm going to imprint a form at the bottom of this piece. Sometimes I'll even sit on it. Sometimes I will go back in and take more paint and I'm just gonna drip it onto my painting. I used a lot of black. Maybe add a little of that. I kind of like that.
All along, whether it was graphic design work, retail displays, or even once a billboard, Nina's skills with color have consistently been her strong suit.
It also happens to be what I enjoy most when I put down color on a panel and I truly just take that time to enjoy the brilliance or the subtleties and the relationships between colors. I find very, very interesting. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I'm just very interested in the way materials react with each other. The big no-no is using watercolors with oil paints. And I was like, well, I have to use watercolors. So what I do is I just varnish in between. I create this I create a layer of netherland in between these two that are never supposed to, the twain shall not meet.
Which brings us to layers, the other trademark of both her paintings and the ceramic work she's taken up too.
Layers of ideas, layers of color. I think of layers in the earth. I even think of our whole humanity as just a layer. Let's look at what happened over here. I like the way I'm seeing through the different colors. I like the way some things have pooled. My themes that kind of surface beyond the beauty of the world and the wonder of our gorgeous earth would definitely be what are we searching for in life? What is important? My very first show was a lot of this combining our natural environment with something man-made. It's definitely a topic that I turn to again and again. This is like a portal somewhere else, but it's also a portal to yourself. To me, the inner search in life is the search, figuring out, what am I doing here? What is my purpose?
But the inner search isn't all about brooding, more along the lines of childlike wonder, so no problem if you take off your shoes.
I can tiptoe around my stuff. I can even, sometimes I'll just full-fledged step on my stuff. When I'm in my socks, I just kind of layer myself onto my work. My work is fun, and I am having fun, and I'm doing a lot of things in my studio, but I am very concentrated. Hours go by, and I have no idea. In fact, I really have to keep an eye on the time. I have this like cush time in my life where I don't have to constantly be, producing something very specific. Part of my whole process is just sitting there and thinking. I'm glad someone's not watching me and I'm not on the clock, like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm not sure, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that a lot of the time I spend doing that adds up to better work, more thoughtful work.
And in the case of this most recent show, making substantially bigger work. While the themes and materials haven't changed much, 2016 did bring significantly larger pieces than ever before.
I think it was a little scary, which is good. It's good to push those boundaries. This was something she was trying out and seeing how it worked and what the reaction is. Now I'd like to see her stretch that horizon a bit.
One horizon checked off this time, poetry. Haiku in particular. Nina teamed with Greg Hack from the Kansas City Star to merge verse and visuals. It was a first for both.
It was just so much fun to do. His work is fantastic. He was able to really get into subjects in a really abstract way. It all started crisscrossing, and we weren't sure, where it separated. It very, very interesting. I love that part of the show. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback. People are very much enjoying the poetry works.
Though technically this is a solo exhibition, the gallery is also showing a few works by Jim Leedy. In a way, it's a vote of confidence that the new kid can hold her own with one of Kansas City's best.
This is her time. I mean, she's an emerging artist, and she's thriving. She's not playing. She's very serious about what she does. She's a natural.
I am so excited to share my work. I like being part of the history, and I also feel connected. I feel like I honor artists of the past by continuing to work hard and carry on this tradition. That's really important to me. It's mostly fun. You just have to be resourceful. I've had to find ways to apply my fun in order to get paid, and I have done that. So it's great, and I do work hard, but gosh, it is oh God, it's almost always fun.
Nina's exhibition runs through February 25th at Weinberger Fine Arts in the Crossroads.
As you saw, Greg Hack's haiku plays a big role in that show. Another Kansas Citian who's written books of haiku and poetry is playwright Frank Higgins.
We profiled Frank last summer around the time his play The Taste Test was being staged at the Off-Broadway Theater.
Next month, another of Frank's works that has yet to be seen in Kansas City will open at the Fish Tank. It's called Gunplay, and sadly, it's all too timely.
In case you missed it, here's our look at this talented man whose house is, well, distinctively painted.
So whose idea was it to change?
Ours.
And what do I tell my board?
We made a mistake.
You mean I made a mistake?
In general, once people get up on their feet, I like to go away and then come back when we're going to do a run-through, so that the actors and director don't feel like the playwright's looking over their shoulder, watching them do their work, because when I was writing the play, nobody was standing in my office looking over my shoulders.
You're not sending me to Timbuktu.
There are consequences.
I'm in a custody fight. You think I'm gonna
I
get
was
my
in the
dog?
corporate world for a very long time. And yeah, I remember conference room settings like this.
So now I'm Nixon? No. My board will push me
I
out.
think he's captured how women go after one another's feelings. They'll go for the juggler.
Part of what this play is about, it deals with the externals of when Coca-Cola changed their flavor, to new Coke. But underneath it, what it's about is a play about loyalty between these people.
Big tycoon wannabe, big Malcolm X wannabe.
The playwright is not usually present to ask questions. You just kind of have to make up what you think would make sense to motivate what you're doing. So it's definitely helpful.
No, but you haven't heard this. No matter what happens,
The Taste Test is chock full of historical facts that Higgins turned up in his research. Not so factual might be 3 women in such powerful posts in the mid-1980s, but hey, that's the playwright's prerogative. As is tinkering with the script's mechanics, even as opening night is barreling towards them.
We needed these words to cover a transition. During a break, we came up with this. I still don't have a soundtrack, but I have a namesake, and she's brilliant.
And that's your exit point up there? All through the process, we've been adding new things and taking them away when he realized, oh, that didn't work like I thought it was going to.
everything I've done has been for you.
And he's very receptive to gauging that dialogue about what am I missing here?
You're not sending me to Timbuktu.
There are consequences.
A soda pop marketing debacle is just one of many topics touched upon in a body of work that stretches across more than 30 years now, not counting the poetry. Early on, The Next Big Thing, based in part on Frank's minor league baseball experiences. Then came The Sweet By and By, sprung from a conversation overheard during a West Virginia pit stop. Gwyneth Paltrow, Blythe Danner, and Judge Reinhold starred in its premiere. There have been plays about guns, miracles, Jesse James, and even a spider. But the most successful by far has been Black Pearl Sings, inspired by the field recordings that Alan Lomax gathered across the South in the 1930s. Once again, though, Higgins wrote the roles for women. While it's been staged by theaters from coast to coast, it hadn't played Kansas City until this spring.
Black Pearl Sings, I've been very lucky. It's had lots of productions. After my mother passed away, there was a lot of debt, and that helped, take that debt away, which would not have happened. If I was writing poetry and if I were not a full-time college teacher or whatever. It's great when the awards come, it's great when the productions come, but that's not what it's about. Okay, if that's the mathematical formula for your play is not going to be any good. Here is the formula for good playwriting, is 2 + 2 = X, and you leave it up to people to fill in the blank and make some decision about something. So let me just ask you the question. The thing that I try to talk to with students that I think is really important is write the thing you can't not write. In a sense, it's not that you find the play finds you. Here's a rubber band question. So did you get a sense? Did you, the author, get a sense of this as we were going through the play? Stretching the rubber band.
I always tell people I took a left turn in grad school, and that left turn was named Frank Higgins. His class was just so dynamic, and he understands, inherently the dramatics of the classroom structure as well as the dramatic structure of plays. He's the Pied Piper of playwriting.
That turn Nick made at UMKC led him in a different direction and into a whole new career. He's now the marketing director for the Unicorn Theater. In 2012, a short play he wrote called Unnamed Lands made it to the finals of the American College Theater Festival. The following year, Nick saw his first Fringe Festival production come to life. Now, work is getting underway on Ace of Leaves, one of 4 shorts that comprise Alphabet Soup, coming soon to City Stage at Union Station.
You have to follow your artistic voice and speak the truth that's in you. And for me, that's been about writing LGBT dramas.
Do you think you're better than me?
Frank helped me get into Fringe, and now that I'm here, I'm not going away.
I think the main thing that Frank has taught me is that, like, if I write something and I'm willing to show it to somebody, someone will want to do something with it. But you've got to kind of put yourself out there and keep, asking people to look at your stuff and give you the feedback.
So when she gets married, her name will be Marcy Darcy.
That's awful.
I know.
I was just writing a scene for playwriting class, and people responded well to it and said that they would be interested to find out more about these characters.
I could filibuster.
I started kind of exploring further and adding things, and over the course of probably a year and a half is how long it actually took me to write all the scenes of it.
Spending some time in a real-life teacher's lounge gave Stephanie some of the fodder for her play about the age-old conflict between high ideals and career advancement. Higgins' playwriting class helped with a lot of the practical stuff.
You have to make time and you have to write. You have to force yourself to sit down and write and finish it and block out the distractions. He gives us a lot of good tips for ways to do that.
I've never had a teacher who's talked to you for 3 hours about your play just on your own. It's just like going on and getting into the meat of it.
What happens in this scene?
That's what I loved about the MFA program at UMKC. There were so many of us poets and nonfiction writers and playwrights learning from each other and very supportive, and Frank was definitely at the center of that for me.
Okay, I'll just say Karen's class.
When he's not the man at the blackboard, around a table or in a seat watching one of his plays being produced, Frank Higgins is simply the man in the Van Gogh Yellow House, surrounded by the artists and icons that inspire him, doing the kind of work that still brings him joy.
If you write a poem or if you write a short story and somebody doesn't like it, it's kind of abstract. You hear about it. But if you're in the theater standing at the back and they don't like it, I mean, if it's a big theater and there's 400 rear ends moving at the same time because people are bored, that's a message.
You know the Chinese symbol for crisis?
If something goes well, like for example, just this sound, so whatever it is, there's some surprise in the plot. That might sound minor, but if you've got 400 or 500 people who all go at the same time, I mean, that's a fantastic feeling, like, it worked.
Frank Higgins' Gunplay, which involves lots of short segments exploring different aspects of firearms, will run at the Fish Tank from March 4th through the 20th.
A much less frightening kind of play is what you'll find here at Moon Marble. Bruce Breslow opened a little shop on K32 in Bonner Springs back in 1997.
And much like the name implies, he's pretty much got it all here. Old marbles, new marbles, demonstrations on making marbles, and different parts of the process too.
These are twisty canes for the next marble we're going to make.
Bruce also has plenty of other glasswork out in the shop as well.
And not to mention the kind of toys and games that will take you back to a simpler time. It's a colorful place, to say the least.
Here on Arts Upload, we go all over the metro to show you cool places like the Moon Marble Company. Sometimes, though, we share stories that take you even further away.
Like this next one from Los Angeles, which brings a little music business star power with it.
It's about a project called Jail Door Guitars, designed to help rehabilitate people serving prison sentences by giving them musical instruments.
The idea was hatched by Wayne Kramer, best known as a founding member of the legendary MC5.
I was terrified. And everyone that faces the prison experience, certainly for the first time, is scared to death. Because you're going into a world where you're not safe. All those fences and all those big tough-looking prison guards and those concrete walls, they're not there to keep you safe.
Life fell apart in 1975 for Wayne Kramer, musician and co-founder of MC5. Convicted and locked up for selling cocaine to undercover federal agents. In 1977, The Clash recorded Jail Guitar Doors with the opening line, "Let me tell you about Wayne and his deals of cocaine." In 2007, UK rocker Billy Bragg forms the non-profit Jail Guitar Doors, providing musical instruments for rehabilitation to prisoners. In 2009, Wayne takes up the cause stateside. Rock Out, a concert to benefit Jail Guitar Doors.
And musicians have always, I think, identified with people that are marginalized, people that slip through the cracks, outsiders, rebels, reprobates, malcontents, ne'er-do-wells, and my experience has been that if I ask someone to come and help us help prisoners, they almost always say yes.
One of the reasons why I support Jail Guitar Doors at the top of the list is because I support Wayne Kramer. And when he asks me to do something, the answer is always an immediate hell yes. So I'm very happy to do it. But I believe it's a tremendously worthwhile cause. You know, the statistics show that recidivism rates are dramatically affected by programs like Jail Guitar Doors.
Everyone wants to be hugged. Everybody wants to be appreciated. Everybody wants to feel good. And I think music does that. And it embraces people to where we can come together. And I think it's the collective human being that really is our greatest asset. You know, not defined by color or race or creed or anything like that. And as cliche as it sounds, that's what music does.
You know, it was to me, it's really interesting that the work is being done. It's really, we need it. We really need a way to reclaim these lives and to you know, the amount of people who are incarcerated is really shocking, you know, and I've never felt that the answer is more jails. I always thought it was more schools. So, but we really can't forget about those who are in there, who are, you know, and who need a way out, who need a way into an authentic life, a life that they, you know, feel and experience this life in positive terms. And I feel that music has been the most rewarding thing in my life, and it's the most valuable thing I could pass on to anybody.
The guitars aren't gifts. We don't give them as gifts. The guitars represent a challenge. If you accept these guitars, then you're accepting the challenge to use them to find a new way to express yourself, a positive way to say this is who I am in the world, to send a message to the world about maybe how you got there, what you can do to make sure you never come back, a way to process your problems, a new way to process your problems.
When they get out of jail, they're going to be your neighbors. They're going to be out in the world, and either they're going to be rehabilitated to some degree and have avenues to express complicated and often mixed feelings, something that art and music can provide, or they're not. I would love to see them have that opportunity. And all you have to look at, you know who one of those people was, one of those desperate criminals who, you know, at the bottom rungs of society was Wayne Kramer. And music saved his life, and now he's trying to extend a hand to others, help save their lives with the gift of music.
I'd put it somewhere at 10% of the prison population, maybe 15%, that we won't reach. We won't get through to them. They're knuckleheads. They're not interested. And they may have grave mental and emotional difficulties on top of that. But that leaves 85% of the 2.3 million people that, if given the tools, would change for the better, that don't want to be in prison, that want to come home, that want to participate in life. If we don't help them change for the better while they're in custody, they will most certainly change for the worse.
I really admire what Wayne and Billy Bragg have started here, and I would do it any time they invited me.
And on that headbanging note, it's time to finish up another edition of Arts Upload.
But we'll be back next week to check in on the Paisleys, Bob and Karen, that is, at the Met.
Till then, from here at Moon Marble in the wilds of Wyandotte County, I'm Randy Mason.
And I'm Maris Aylward. Thanks for watching.
That makes a marble with a really cool hairdo right there. See that? If you guys can help me, can we have a countdown from 5, everybody? 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's the meteor coming in. It's the graphite mold. I'm putting that right in the mold, and then I'm going to go ahead. There's a lot of creases in there, so I'm going to go ahead and get this all smoothed down now. Good.
Yay! Marble in the kiln, marble in the kiln. Those are pretty moments. Good.
Production funding for Arts Upload has been provided in part by Muriel McBrien Kaufman Foundation, Hall Family Foundation, Francis Family Foundation, John W. and FEE Spies Memorial Trust, the H&R Block Foundation, Richard J. Stern Foundation for the Arts, Courtney S. Turner Charitable Trust, and viewers like you. Thank you.